Alright, hello everyone. So in this video we're going to learn to create the histogram using our TI84 or our TI calculator. We're going to learn two procedures for this. One procedure will use the frequency table saved on your calculator, and the other procedure is going to use the raw data. So let's do it. The first thing that we need to do is go into the stat menu. Alright, and we can do that by pressing the button that says stat. Okay, in our stat menu we have a couple different options. If we go to option 1, the one that says edit, you're going to see the list, the different lists. Okay, and this is where I've saved the frequency table. The list 1 is of course the lower boundary. List 2 is the upper boundary. List 3 is the class mark. And list 4 is the frequency. So we're going to go ahead and use this frequency table to create our histogram. Okay, we have to remember where we saved each different thing. So again, list 1, lower boundary, list 2, upper boundary, list 3, class mark, and list 4 is the frequency. After we have our complete frequency table, and this is the frequency table that we've been using for the case study, the example that we've been using, we're going to click on second stat plot, which is the y equals button, the first button up here. Second stat plot. Okay, and here we have a bunch of different graphs. They are all by default turned off. So what we have to do is turn one of them on. So we're going to go into the first one, and here it's off. It's when it's black, so we want to turn it on. We're going to click, we're going to go over to on, and we're going to click enter. And now we know that the graph is on. Down here for type, we can choose the one that has the bars for the histogram. Okay. For X list, we're going to use the lower boundary, which is list 1. And for the frequency, if you guys remember, the frequency is saved on list 4. So we can put second 4, and that's going to give us list 4 for the frequency. After we've done this, we can quit out of this menu, second quit. Okay, and we need to press window. Okay, so that's that second button that's up at the top, window. And we need to change the settings here to create our graph. So the minimum is going to be 0 because that's the minimum of the data. The maximum will be 24. Okay, these are the numbers that come from our frequency table. The minimum, 0. And then the last class interval ends at 24. And where we have X scale, that's going to be the class width. So we know that the class width is 3. Okay, for this particular example. For the minimum, we can put 0 for the Y. And the maximum, I think that the biggest bar is 25. So anything bigger than 25 is fine. So we can put like 30, for example. And then we can leave the rest the same. On some calculators, I think there's also an option for colors. I forget where, but you can put whatever color you want. And after we have these settings, we can click on graph. And the calculator will do the histogram for us. Okay, and if we want to check the height of the bars, we can click on the button that says trace. Okay, so from 0 to 3, we have a frequency of 22. From 3 to 6, we have a frequency of 0. From 6 to 9, we have a frequency of 0 again. From 9 to 12, 5, 11, 10, 25, and 7. So this is the first method for creating our histogram. So now let's look at the second method. Okay, so for the second method, we can go into the stat menu, edit the lists, and we need to have the list of all the data. Okay, so for the example that we've been using, that's a total amount of 80 data points. So you need to copy them onto your calculator. All right, I've already done it here so that we don't take a lot of time during the video. So you need all of the data for the second method. After you have the data, you can go to second stat. Okay, same thing. If the plot were off, then we need to turn it on. The type again is the bar graphs. Okay, and for the second method, the X list is still going to be list 1, but the frequency is going to be 1. Whoops. The frequency is going to be 1. The number 1, okay, not list 1, the number 1. Okay, so the settings should look like this. Okay, X list is 1, frequency is the number 1, the type of graph is the bars, and it should be set to on. Okay, after that we can quit out of that menu, go to the window and set the window. It's going to be the same settings that we had for the first method. We know that the minimum is 0, the maximum will be 24, X scale of 3, minimum Y minimum of 0, Y maximum of 30. Okay, and when we click on graph, the calculator will do the graph again. And if we want to look at the height of each bar, we can click on trace, and here we can see the height of the bar. Okay, so this is the second method for doing the histogram. Again, this method is very useful for constructing frequency tables because it does the counting part for us. Okay, so instead of having to count by hand, if we have a calculator and we do the histogram, then the calculator is going to do the counting for us, which is very useful for saving some time and for avoiding mistakes. Okay, the last thing that we need to remember, and this is for both methods, whenever you're done using the graph, then you need to go back to stat plot and you need to turn off the graph. Okay, you should always leave the graphs to off. They should always be off because sometimes the calculator will generate errors if you leave the plots on. Okay, when you're trying to graph something else or when you're doing something different and you forgot to turn the plot off, then it'll generate errors a lot of times. So that's it.